Hey guys, it's Karl, and I realize I've been using my 16-inch MacBook Pro with the M1 Max chip since it launched in October around 4 months ago as my daily device. I've created unboxing videos, I've created setup videos, but I haven't created my full review. And typically because Apple releases these in the middle of Techtober, it's the busiest time for any tech YouTuber. I had a huge Q4 with so many vids, and CES was actually the busiest one I've had to date. So I thought it would be great to revisit this. Is it worth still grabbing in the early Q1 of 2022, or should you wait for the M2 MacBooks to launch? And I think those should be coming sometime in fall, maybe even late spring. And I'll start off by saying the introduction of the M1 Max and M1 Pro chip were probably the second best upgrade coming to the MacBook Pro line in close to a decade. I will give the winner to the OG M1 chip. It kind of revolutionized the Apple laptop space, and I am upgrading from my older 16-inch MacBook Pro, which had a fully spec'd out Intel Core i9. It had 8 core, 32 gigs of RAM with the Radeon Pro 5500M, and in my typical workflow, so I am shooting in 4K right now on my Sony a7S III, not even on the highest codec. When I bring my footage from both A cam and B cam into that project file, my computer sounded like a NASA spaceship. It was throttling to the max. It would essentially come to a standstill, and even the OG M1 MacBook line, so we had that in the Mac Mini, the MacBook Air, and the 13-inch MacBook Pro, that could handle my workflow better. So naturally, when we got the M1 Pro, the M1 Max chips, I have not broken a sweat on this computer. I haven't even come close to maxing it out. I'm not tackling multiple 8K streams, I'm simply creating YouTube videos. So for me, I will say that this device is overkill, but it's made my experience just so much better. It's always been a running joke. If you launch 50 Chrome tabs, you could bog down a $3,000 MacBook. So yeah, I will say I am in the Apple ecosystem, and if you use Final Cut, this machine is godly. I will say it is the best laptop that you can get. Of course, pricey, so this starts at $2,500. This exact spec in Canadian dollars runs close to $5,000 plus tax. You could get a used car for that price. It's good, but of course you gotta pay for that goodness. Moving on over to things that I've kind of loved and really took notice over for the past couple months, the I/O ports. So you do have USB-C, you've got 3 slots, of course, HDMI and an SD card slot. So they've of course increased the chunkiness. I'm a fan of that. Create a Pro device that actually has usable ports. I do not need to live the dongle life anymore, so I typically always had this with my older 16-inch. I kind of rarely use this now as an accessory, but I will say for some reason my SD card slot, and I'm not the only creator, it just has become extremely slow and sometimes unresponsive. And I know since I'm not the only one, it's clearly an issue, so you might have to rock a dongle from time to time. I will say I am a fan of reintroducing MagSafe for charging. It isn't maybe as great as I initially thought, but because I pair this with my Pro Display XDR, or if you use this with any display with USB-C, you just typically want one cable, both to charge and give you video image. You don't really need this, and I find that I only use my MagSafe charger when I travel, so I usually keep it in my pack when I don't hook this up to an external display, and since I don't travel as much anymore, I use this maybe once every 3 to 4 months, as most of the time I do have it plugged into that display behind me. Some other things that I'm kind of indifferent about, the function keys of course have made a comeback. They were in the previous gen MacBook Pros. If you are coming from an older MacBook with the touch bar, the thing that I maybe miss the most is using emojis in iMessage, using emojis to respond to comments. I rarely use the function keys, and maybe the only thing when I do plug this into my Pro Display XDR, the touch bar, you could control the brightness on both the laptop and on the Pro Display. You actually have to go into settings as you don't have a dedicated, I guess, touch bar to figure that out. So that's a minor thing. If you happen to be a programmer or into coding, I think you'll like the function keys. Once again, I'm pretty indifferent. Second indifference is the notch, which was sadly the biggest talking point a couple months ago. I've kind of just gotten used to it. Just like with your iPhone, you rarely notice it. There's not actually any usable information here. And at least when you take screenshots, Apple happens to kind of crop that area out. So something that you get used to. If it really bothers you, just have a dark wallpaper. But after the first couple days, honestly, you kind of just forget about this little dead space and it doesn't really detract anything. And for the rest, the build is best in class. It's what Apple is kind of known for, so completely made out of one piece of aluminum. I did opt to choose for the silver just to kind of match my Pro display, and I actually kind of dig the OG silver. It's a bit classy, and I feel like space gray is a bit dated now. That's obviously personal preference. Keyboard, we've got the butterfly switches. I don't even need to use an external keyboard. I mashed this keyboard all day for 4 months. I still haven't had one key stuck, and that's something that I couldn't say about the old switches on my previous MacBook Pro, which would get stuck all the time, especially my space bar. I had to bring that into the Apple Store at least 2 to 3 times to get that fixed. Trackpad, it's what you know about Apple. It's nice, it's large, industry leading once again, it feels great. Speakers are best in class, even though I typically have earbuds in or a pair of over-the-ear headphones. When I do watch, say, content, when I'm watching a soccer game, when I'm watching Netflix, I do typically have these kind of pumping, and they sound probably the best out of any laptop. 3 mic array, so you can definitely get by for all your voice meetings, conference calls, and they have finally bumped up that front-facing cam to 1080p. So once again, if you're using this as your full business device, if you're taking Zoom calls all the time, like I think most of us still do, which is what is crazy. Toronto is currently, as of I'm recording this video, still under lockdown. So working from home is still a thing, and that really depends on where you are in the world. But yeah, I don't think that's going anywhere anytime soon. So for my recommended spec, this is a bit of personal preference, so either the 16-inch or the 14-inch. Personally, I always go for the larger device. Not only do I like the extra screen real estate, but it's all about the battery. And you can kind of see off this way, my little Lego guy, I use the 13 Pro Max. Once again, I don't think it's a better phone than the 13 or even 13 Pro. I just want that extra battery. These are devices that I spend literally all day on, and I would say the battery life is the best feature of these devices. If you haven't experienced M1 battery, you're in, honestly, for the greatest treat in your life. They just kind of last all day, even more so, and you can even get by without bringing your charger. You can see that my typical screen on time is just over that 10-hour mark, and even on some days I've been on this for close to 12 hours. And although I am lucky because I plug it in, I have taken this on multiple trips to CES. I've been to LA, so I've edited an entire flight's worth, so around 6 hours. I can head to a keynote, take down notes, even edit, even though I should be paying attention to what's going on, and still not worry about the battery, and still not have to worry about bringing a charger in my bag. It's honestly just been so great. And if you are switching to M1 for the first time, if you're switching on over from a PC or the older Intel-based MacBooks, my God, you will love the battery experience. I think it's truly a game changer. I know that Intel is coming out with some of their better PCs like the Intel Evo platform. We've got stuff from Snapdragon coming out, but for the amount of power that this device gets, for the amount of output you can get, as long as you're in the Apple ecosystem, it just can't be touched. That was a bit of a tangent off. Coming back to my recommended specs. So like I said, 16 or 14 inch, that's really up to you. Do you need the M1 Max chip? Even the M1 Pro, probably still overkill. I still think the OG M1 chip offers some great value, and if you are a student, if you are a business professional, if you do the occasional edit, if you are my main demographic from that age of 15 to 30, M1 Max, overkill. If you want a device that can absolutely crush everything that you throw at it, if you think you're going to become the next MKBHD, the next famous YouTuber, if you've got that extra money to spend, yeah, this is obviously a great device to get. Is it worth waiting for the M2? Honestly, I still think you should grab this right now. It's not like the next MacBooks are launching in the next 2 months, and imagine all that content, all that you can use this MacBook for. And in terms of overall design, we just got a bit of a refresh. It's a bit chunkier, so don't expect the 2022 MacBook Pros to be any different design-wise. The M2 chip, from what we've seen, it cannot improve that much or cannot give you that much significant upgrades over the M1 Max. I'm assuming it'll maybe be like a 15-20% upgrade, and already these are really good devices. We're probably going to see that biggest upgrade coming from the OG M1 to, of course, M2, and that M1 Pro and M1 Max. Those will slot kind of 3/4 down this imaginary line. So yeah, overall, freaking solid device. It is so much better than my older 16-inch, which actually when I turned that on, that fan was already running and I didn't even touch it. This device has been absolutely silent. Things that I haven't even mentioned that are good: liquid retina XDR display kind of built in. It does have ProMotion, so 120 hertz. I haven't really noticed that, to be honest. Maybe when I'm scrolling through web pages. It's crisp and good. And maybe the last thing, accessory-wise, I am a bit rough with my device. I kind of throw it into my bag every day when I head home. I have sadly scratched mine on the front. Grab a skin, grab a case if you want. I do also rock a mouse, Logitech MX Master 3. I think this needs no introduction. This is usually my go-to combo, and the pair of headphones that I've actually been pairing with it, I actually have two. The Nothing earbuds, which did get a bit of hype. I think they look really cool. I wish AirPods actually looked like this. They sound pretty similar to the AirPods version 3s or the OG AirPod V3s. And the Beats Pro Fit, I think that's what they're called. These actually just became available in Canada and the rest of the world. I know that they've been out in the US since November, so these will just be, I guess, some earbuds that I test out. Maybe more so for working out because they're so soft and silicone-y, and I think perfect for that kind of stuff. But yeah, overall, 16-inch MacBook Pro, I can't speak volumes about it. It is the best laptop that you can get if you can afford one. I know that the wait times on it, once again, I went on a tangent. RAM-wise, grab the one with 32 gigs, 64 gigs is just ridiculous. Storage-wise, I think you can get by with 1 terabyte, and if you need anything more, just work off an external SSD. Yeah, we went through some weird tangents to get to my recommended spec, but here you have it. I think it's around 3,500 bucks. Pricey, but you will not need another laptop, I can guarantee you, in the next 3 to 4 years. It is that good. Hope you guys enjoyed this revisited review, and now you know what to get instead of the M2. Peace.